Okay, we are recording. And I'll put you over here. All right, so there are CyberQ labs for this one. There are only 12 modules for this class. So there's not a huge ton of things. And I have some, excuse me, modules that I will be creating, not modules, but some labs for practical stuff for us to play with each week. So we should be having fun with that. So if we go into assignments, everything is in there right now except for my personalized labs because they had a little bit of a mishap, and some of my old forensics courses were I misunderstood, they misunderstood, there was a big communication breakup, and my old forensics class was shelved with my old labs information on there. So I'm just waiting for them to restore that so that I can pull everything out from it. So those will be on there, and then we'll work on those on Friday. So for week one, just like we had to do CyberQ for the other ones, you have to go in and do the same registration. Hopefully you guys already have this. Some of you had this that was part of the package that you already purchased. So check your papers and make sure you may already have purchased this. And here is that registration code. It's under week one. It's also under the documents, course documents section. I figured if I put it in two places, we should be good. It's also significantly cheaper, so there is that. And just remember, if you don't have it, option it to pick it up in person, because otherwise I suspect they're going to do the mailing it out thing too. So this first week, we're going to work on modules 1 and 2, which is computer forensics fundamentals and computer forensics investigation process. And as far as CyberQ goes, only one of those has a module, and that's the investigation process. There'll be a weekly test, which you'll see pop up here by Wednesday, and you'll also see an individualized one for us. That'll be one from me later on. So when you look through these assignments, it'll just continue like in that vein, same thing. But when you look down in week 7, that's our very last module. And then you'll see this right here. Now, NIST created these nifty little files and case studies that are meant to look like if you were out in the field and working on stuff. So I figured our 7th week, we would have fun. And since I like to use autopsy on the very last part, so week 6 and 7, we're going to be doing one of their case studies. So that is something that we can all look forward to there. So I just thought you guys would want to know what that's talking about. Autopsy is a forensic program, which you'll see referenced. You can use it on Windows. I will tell you right now, it eats memory. So you may want to put it on your virtual machine, and there should be a Windows 10 option, and you can create a Windows 10 computer, sorry, on there, and then you can do that as well. Yeah, actually, you won't be doing Steve's, but you can do all sorts of stuff. My laptop, I haven't tried autopsy with it. I actually had to upgrade my big honky full tower machine to 80 RAM to get it to be happy. So that tells you how much RAM it likes to eat. So just be aware. Okay, so okay, let's go over this. Now we have spring break listed in here. So we have the first 2 weeks of class, and then we have spring break. So don't forget about that. And then this week's assignment, remember our first week of assignment, we have to do attendance verification. So please log in and just open up your class CSEC 257 by Wednesday night, so I can get that little checkbox going saying, yes, they were here, so that we can get that put in there for you. Okay, so that's all of our generic course stuff. Does anyone have any questions on that? Nope, nope, nope. Okay. All right. So in course documents, there's a whole bunch of stuff. You'll notice there's no slides yet because, of course, there was no print screens of these slides yet. I am chugging through them, making those for you guys. You will not see this because that's hidden and that's for me. But you have two links. This is the link to go out to VitalSource for your ebook, and then this is also a download if you want to for the EPUB version of your book. And then again, here's your thing for CyberQ Labs. This is a link to SWEDGE, Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence. There's some additional resources. These are some PDFs here. There's some videos to help with course content. And this will be, as soon as I get my course stuff fixed, that I can go back and pull it in. I wanted to give you guys some your CompTIA Security Plus study materials early so that you guys could have that, because you need to sit for it, not with this class, but next semester you need to sit for it before the last week of class. So I wanted to give you extra time. So yeah, that's what's that with here. If you have any questions for the PHP project, you can stick around after class and I can get with you with that, or we can talk about it tomorrow during that particular class. Are there any questions about digital forensics class before we get started on the slides? No. No, there's a lot in NCIS. NCIS isn't as bad as CSI, the CSI shows, but it does make my eye twitch frequently. Okay, so this is our table of contents. It's a little confusing because you don't have your nice little thing like we had on the other one. Excuse me. So our first module that we're going through today is fundamentals. This is just our basics. I don't think we need to go through student introduction. We all pretty much know each other. So, okay, we're doing the DFE program, which is the Digital Forensic Essentials program, which is kind of like if you were taking a precursor to the CHFI, which is the Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator program. This is kind of like you would take this one and then that one next. So it's a security program covering fundamental concepts of computer forensics. It equips students with the skills required to identify an intruder's footprints and to properly gather the necessary evidence to prosecute in the court of law. And this is our course outline again. So what are we going to learn through this training? Key issues plaguing computer forensics, different types of digital evidence, computer forensic investigation process and the phases of that process, different types of disk drives and file systems, data acquisition methods and data acquisition methodology, and of course, anti-forensics techniques and countermeasures. Yes, we're recording. So what are we going to learn? Part 2. Volatile and non-volatile information gathering from Windows, Linux, and Mac systems. Network forensics fundamentals, event correlation, and network traffic investigation, web server logs and web application forensics, dark web forensics, email crime investigations, and malware forensics. Okay. This is what their lab environment looks like.
For some reason,
Yep.
when you talked about the types of data gathering right there, I imagined for like the active data gathering, a bunch of police officers sitting there and like slamming a PC case on the ground and be like, it appears to be some sort of computer.
You know, there are a lot of things you have to overcome if you watch any of those forensic shows. There's a reason I'm not allowed to watch them with normal people. Because I frequently just am like, that's not how you do that. And it's not even just regular for digital, like digital forensic, it's regular forensics. They do so many things wrong with evidence handling. So many things, all the things. Just assume if you're watching a TV show, unless it's a documentary, there's like a good 75% chunk that's wrong. Okay, hold on, I'm going to mute so I don't cough on you guys. Okay, is it going to bother you guys if I put a lozenge in? Hopefully it won't mess with my voice, but it might help the coughing. Okay, good. Yeah, well, I'll put one in, yeah. It'll be a group experience. Okay, so for the lab environment that they're talking about, I've got Windows Server 2019, Windows 10, Ubuntu Forensics, Ubuntu Suspect, and then there's a student and instructor machine. Okay, so in the first module, we're going to go over understanding the fundamentals of computer forensics, understanding different types of cybercrimes, overview of IOCs, which are indicators of compromise, overview of different types of digital evidence and rules of evidence, understanding forensic readiness planning and business continuity, understanding the roles and responsibility of a forensics investigator, understanding legal compliance in computer forensics. All right, now this little thing pops up and you'll see like each time we switch to one of their new sections. So the first part is understand the fundamentals of computer forensics. And if you have a question at all in any of this, remember this is my favorite subject, so I'm happy to talk about it. Computer forensics refers to a set of methodological procedures and techniques that help identify, gather, preserve, extract, interpret, document, and present evidence from computing equipment such that any discovered as evidence is acceptable during legal and or administrative proceedings. Now, that last part of the sentence is the key thing. Because you can do all the other stuff for any regular IT thing, but being able to be accepted into a legal or administrative proceeding is a big thing. And in order to get that accepted, there are certain steps. So what are the objectives? Identify, gather, and preserve evidence of cybercrime. Minimize the tangible and intangible losses to the organization. Gather evidence of cybercrimes in a forensically sound manner. Now, we'll talk a lot about what is considered forensically sound. Protect the organization from similar incidents in the future. Estimate the potential impact of malicious activity on the victim and assess the intent of the perpetrator. Support the prosecution of the perpetrator of an incident. Okay, so we have a little four-step need for computer forensics. So to ensure overall integrity and continued existence of IT systems and network infrastructure within organizations. 2, to extract, process, and interpret factual evidence such that it proves the attacker's actions in court. 3, to efficiently track down perpetrators from different parts of the world, and 4, to protect the organization's financial resources and valuable time. So, when do you use computer forensics?
Quick question on that last slide.
Oh, yep.
So how come 1 points at 3, 3 points at 4, 4 points at 2, 2 points at 1?
I have no idea why they did that, but
I was just
I think
wondering
they
if
were
there was
trying
like
to
a
be fancy.
Oh,
I think they were trying to show that everything is cyclic, and they were doing it in a fancy schmancy way, and it just came out looking kind of odd.
okay. I was just wondering if there's actually like something behind that.
Nope, nope. So when do you do computer forensics? So prepare for incidents by securing and strengthening the defense mechanisms as well as closing loopholes in security. You identify the actions needed for incident response. You act against copyright and intellectual property theft or misuse. Estimate and minimize damage to resources in corporate setup. And set a security perimeter and formulate security norms for ensuring forensic readiness. So some of these, it's nice that we've had the classes set up the way that they are, because you'll already know some of this, like the different types of cybercrimes. So cybercrimes defined as any illegal act involving computing devices, networks, systems, or applications. And they've got them categorized into 2 types based on their line of attack: the internal or insider attacks and external. So remember, our internals are the attacks performed by on a corporate network or on a single computer by an entrusted person who has authorized access to the network. Such insiders can be former or current employees, business partners, or contractors. They can basically be anybody as long as they have that insider track. An external attack is the type of attack that occurs when an attacker from outside the organization tries to gain unauthorized access to computing systems or informational assets. They exploit security loopholes or use social engineering techniques to infiltrate the network. And here's our nice big types of cybercrimes. We have espionage, intellectual property theft, data manipulation, Trojan horse attacks, structured query language attacks, or that's SQL right there, brute force attack, phishing, spoofing, privilege escalation, denial of service, cyber defamation, cyber terrorism, and cyber warfare. So, what are the impacts of cyber crimes at the organizational level? Excuse me. And a lot of times, what I tell people to think of on these is think about this as if you're the CEO or the CFO or the CIO. You're at the executive level, and it's how you view that cyber crimes at that level that they're viewing here. So loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information stored in the organizational systems, theft of sensitive data, sudden disruption of business activities, loss of customer and stakeholder trust, substantial reputational damage. Now, that may not seem as big, but if you're a CIO or CFO, that can be incredibly problematic. Huge financial losses. Penalties arising from the failure to comply with regulators. Okay. On to our next bit, which is understanding digital evidence. So, introduction to digital evidence. Digital evidence is defined as any information of probative value. So do you know what they mean by probative value? There's some legal terms in here I'll be asking you if you guys understand. No, it's not so much an insider. Probative value, it has to deal with whether or not it can be used.
I was going to say it allows them easier access.
No, probative value is talking about whether it can be basically used in court a lot of times. excuse me, you know how they talk about probate and things like that? They're talking about whether or not it can be used in a court of law. It's either stored or transmitted in digital form. Digital evidence is circumstantial and fragile in nature, which also makes it difficult for a forensic investigator to trace criminal activities. According to Locard's exchange principle, anyone or anything entering a crime scene takes something of the scene with them and leaves something of themselves behind when they leave. So, do you know what they're talking about when they're talking about Locard's exchange principle? Exactly. So this is the reason that you wear gloves, that you see them wearing, they call them bunny suits, those full-on suits where you like cover your hair and everything else, because it's very easy for us to do things that we would not consider changing the crime scene, but you can very accidentally change a crime scene, especially when it comes to digital forensics. Like somebody who doesn't understand computers, if they walk into a crime scene, they don't know, maybe I shouldn't be pulling out the cords or powering off the computer, or they're just like, oh, it's a computer, I'm gonna unplug it and put it in a box and it'll be just fine. Well, no, it won't. And that's then, according to that exchange principle, they have just put something of themselves in that case by changing possibly the evidence. So that's what it's talking about as far as digitals go. But a lot of times it's usually hair and fingerprints or footprints. So there are two main types of digital evidence. There's volatile and non-volatile data. Volatile data is data that is lost as soon as the device is powered off. So that's why I made that comment about, they go in and they shut stuff off or they unplug things, and then it can immediately change the evidentiary value, because then you've just lost volatile data. So examples include system time, logged on users, open files, network information, process to port mapping, process memory, clipboard contents, service driver information, command history, etc. Now, non-volatile data, that's permanent data stored on secondary storage devices like hard disks and memory cards. Examples are like hidden files, slack space, swap files, index DAT files, unallocated clusters, unused partitions, hidden partitions, registry settings, event logs, etc. So, and I will tell you, this you will see over and over and over again. What are the two types of digital evidence? Every digital forensics class I've ever taken asks you this question constantly. Yes, part of the process is that you have to document how, and we will go over this, but you have to document everything before you remove the power source. Roles of digital evidence. So, examples of cases where digital evidence may assist the forensic investigator in prosecution or defense of a suspect: identity theft, malicious attacks on computer systems themselves, information leaks, unauthorized transmission of information, theft of commercial secrets, use or abuse of the internet, production of false documents and accounts, unauthorized encryption, password protection of documents, abuse of systems, email communications between suspects or conspirators. So, here are some sources of potential evidence. So on the left, we'll start with user-created files, address books, database files, media files, documents, internet bookmarks or favorites. Then we have user-protected files, compressed files, misnamed files, encrypted files, password-protected files, hidden files, and then steganography. And then on the far right, we have computer created files. These are backup files, log files, configuration files, printer spool files, cookies, swap files, system files, history files, and temporary files. All right, now there's a couple of pages on with these slides, and they're pretty nice. So on the left, you have the device, and then you have the location of potential evidence. So on a hard drive, you have texts, pictures, video, multimedia, databases, computer program files, thumb drives, text, graphics, image, and picture files. Memory cards, you can have event logs, chat logs, text files, image files, picture files, internet browsing history, dongles, biometric scanners, smart cards. Evidence is found by recognizing or authenticating the information of the card and the user through the level of access, configuration permissions, and in the device itself. Answering machines. Yes, people still do use these. Voice recordings such as deleted messages, last called numbers, memos, phone numbers, and tapes. Digital cameras or surveillance cameras. We have our images, removable cartridge, video sounds, time and date stamps, etc. RAM or random access memory and volatile storage. Evidence is located and can be acquired from main memory of the computer. And there are programs specifically for that. Continued, handheld devices, address books, appointment calendars or information documents, emails, handwriting, passwords, phone books, text messages, voicemails. There's tons more stuff on there. LANs or NICs, we have the media access control address, routers, modems, hubs, and switches. For routers, evidence is found in your configuration files. For hub switches and modems, evidence is found on the device themselves. Network cables and connectors on the device themselves, unless they're using those specialty cables that look like regular cables but aren't. Servers, that'll be on the computer system. Printer, it's found through usage logs, time and date information, network information. You can have it in ink cartridges, time and date stamps. And depending on the type of printer, some of them have their own local RAM, and you can pull that out of there as well. IoTs and wearable devices, evidence can be acquired from in the form of GPS, audio and video recordings, cloud storage, sensors, etc. Removable storage devices. Storage devices and media like CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, they can have all sorts of things. Scanners, it's found by looking at the marks on the glass of the scanner. Some scanners have built-in memory, so you might have that too. Telephones, it's found through names, phone numbers, caller ID information, appointment information, email, all sorts of things. And by that, they're not talking about smartphones, they're just talking about phones. Copiers, documents, usage logs, user usage logs, time and date stamps. Credit card skimmers. Evidence is found through card expiration dates, user address, credit card numbers, usernames, etc. Digital watches, it's found through, they have address books and notes, appointment calendars. A lot of times they'll sync with another device, and then you can try to find that other device with them. Fax machines, surprisingly, they are used a lot more than you would think they are. Evidence is found through documents, phone numbers, cartridges, or send and receive logs. And then we have GPS systems, and that's found through previous destination waypoints, routes, travel logs, etc. Okay. So I want you guys to pay attention to this. And this is actually a really good slide for you guys to save and refer to. The rules of evidence. So digital evidence collection must be governed by 5 basic rules that make it admissible in a court of law. 1, it has to be understandable. The evidence must be clear and understandable to the judges. 2, admissible. Evidence must be related to the fact that it's trying to prove, that's being proved. You can't just turn something in that's absolutely not related at all. Authentic evidence must be real and appropriately related to the incident. Reliable, there must be no doubt about the authenticity or veracity of the evidence. That's where things like your chain of custody come in. Complete evidence must prove the attacker's actions or his or her innocence. So does this make sense to you guys? Okay. Yeah, they got pretty basic on this, so I thought that would help. So with that, we have the best evidence rule. This rule states that the court only allows original evidence of a document, photograph, or recording at the trial rather than a copy. Remember, this is one you're going to want to pay attention to. However, the duplicate can be accepted as evidence provided the court finds the party's reasons for submitting the duplicate to be genuine. The principle underlying best evidence rule is that the original evidence is considered as the best evidence. So this is why when you're doing digital forensics, you make a copy and work off the copy. Because if you don't have the original to refer to make copies from, so that, you know, say you're in the middle of a prosecution and this is just over the top, like you're helping in the prosecution of drug kingpin, and he's got all of his digital records on this hard drive that you have, and so you have to make copies and work off of the copies. Now you make what are called forensically sound copies, which are bit for bit replicas, but you don't want to work off that original one because you don't want to taint the evidence. And two, the defense has to have the right to make their own copies of the evidence so that they can have it analyzed, those copies analyzed by their own specialists. Because, you know, they have the right in order to do that. So if you're out there working on that original file, original hard drive, you're changing things by just working on it. In which case, exactly, you've tampered with the evidence. So you've just destroyed the best evidence. So that's why you never work on the original. So, federal rules of evidence in the United States. These rules shall be construed to secure fairness in administration, elimination of unjustifiable expense and delay, and promotion of growth and development of the law of evidence to the end that the truth may be ascertained and proceedings justly determined. So, remember there was a link out there to SWGDE, SWGDE, which is Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence. This is one of the professional places that has created standards and criteria. So principle 1, in order to ensure that the digital evidence is collected, preserved, examined, or transferred in a manner safeguarding accuracy and reliability of the evidence, law enforcement and forensic organizations must establish and maintain an effective quality system. Standards and criteria 1.1. All agencies that seize and or examine digital evidence must maintain an appropriate standard operating procedure document. All elements of an agency's policies and procedures concerning digital evidence must be clearly set forth in this SOP document, which must be issued under the agency's management authority. Standards and criteria 1.2. Agency managements must review the SOPs on an annual basis to ensure their continued suitability and effectiveness, because anything with digital in it changes frequently. Standard and criteria 1.3, procedures used must be generally accepted in the field or supported by data gathered and recorded in a scientific manner. Okay. Onward, agency must maintain written copies of appropriate technical procedures. 1.5, agencies must use hardware and software that are appropriate and effective for the seizure or examination procedure. So you can't just go out and use anything. You have to use products and things that are actually legitimate. 1.6, all activity relating to seizure, storage, examination, or transfer of the digital evidence must be recorded in writing and be available for review and testimony, i.e. the chain of custody is what they're talking about there. And 1.7, any action that has the potential to alter, damage, or destroy any aspect of the original evidence must be performed by qualified persons in a forensically sound manner. Okay. There are different organizations that you'll see throughout this that make, that make different laws that are followed. This one's the Association of Chiefs Police Officers, or ACPO, and this is their Principles of Digital Evidence. Principle 1, no action taken by law enforcement agencies or their agents should change data held on a computer or storage media which may subsequently be relied upon in court. So that was my comment about keep the originals, work on copies. Principle 2, in exceptional circumstances where the person finds it's necessary to access original data held on a computer or storage media, that person must be competent to do so and be able to explain his or her actions and the impact of those actions on the evidence in court. In other words, you better have a really good reason, and they must be really, they must be an expert in their field, or else they're going to get bounced right out. And then they've just lost their key piece of evidence. Principle 3, an audit trail or other record of all processes applied to computer-based electronic evidence should be created and preserved. An independent third party should be able to examine those processes and achieve the same result. So remember how they were talking about scientific methodology? Well, the big thing there is you have to have repeatable results. That's why they're talking about independent third party, and they have to be able to look at all these steps that they've done and say, okay, I'm going to do this and get the same results. Well, if they do that and they don't get the same results, they're going to assume that somehow there was a step missed or there was tampering. Principle 4, the person in charge of the investigation, case officer, has overall responsibility for ensuring the law and these principles are adhered to. All right. Next, we're on to understanding forensic readiness. Does anyone have any questions before I go to that? Okay, so forensic readiness refers to an organization's ability to optimally use digital evidence in a limited period of time and with minimal investigation costs. The benefits are fast and efficient investigation with minimal disruption to the business, provides security from cybercrimes such as intellectual property theft, fraud, and extortion, offers structured storage of evidence that reduces the cost and time of an investigation, improves law enforcement interface, helps the organization use the digital evidence in its own defense. So, forensic readiness and business continuity. Forensic readiness helps maintain business continuity by allowing quick and easy identification of the impacted components and replacing them to continue services and business, whatever is going on in the business. Forensic readiness allows businesses to quickly determine the incident, collect legally sound evidence, and analyze it to identify attackers, minimize required resources, quickly recover from damage with less downtime, gather evidence to claim insurance, legally prosecute the perpetrators and claim damages. So lack of forensic readiness, what might happen there? Loss of clients due to damage to organization's reputation. Significant downtime. I'm putting significant there because I've seen that happen and it's not pretty. Data manipulation, deletion, and theft, and inability to collect legally sound evidence. Forensic readiness planning. This refers to a set of processes to be followed to achieve and maintain forensic readiness. Okay, so we're going to go through some steps here. Identify potential evidence required for an incident. And that means that basically you look at what you have and say, here are our pain points, here are the areas where we will probably need to provide potential readiness. Determine sources of evidence, define policies that determine the pathway to legally extract electronic evidence with minimal disruption, establish a policy to handle and store the acquired evidence in a secure manner, identify if incident requires full or formal investigation. And that basically means, can you do it in-house or do you need to talk to the cops or someone else? Create a process for documenting the procedure, establish legal advisory board to guide the investigation process, keep an incident response team ready to review incident and preserve the evidence. Okay. Next, identify the roles and responsibilities of your forensic investigator. So needs for your forensic investigator? Well, cybercrime investigation. Forensic investigators, by virtue of their skills and experience, help organizations and law enforcement agencies investigate and prosecute perpetrators of cybercrime. Sound evidence handling. If a technically inexperienced person examines evidence, it might become, there's no might. Just take the might out of there. It will become inadmissible in a court of law. It's very easy to destroy evidence, especially digital evidence. Incident handling and response. Forensic investigators help organizations maintain forensic readiness and implement effective incident handling and response. What are the roles and responsibilities of a forensic investigator? They perform the following tasks. They determine the extent of any damage done during the crime. They recover data of investigative value from computing devices involved in crimes, create an image of the original evidence without tampering with it to maintain its integrity, guide officials carrying out investigation, analyze the evidence data found, prepare the analysis report, updates the organization about various attack methods and data recovery techniques, and they maintain a record of them, addresses the issues in a court of law, and attempts to win the case by testifying in court. What makes a good computer forensics investigator? Interviewing skills to gather extensive information about the case from the client or victim, witnesses, and suspects. Excellent writing skills to detail findings in the report. Strong analytical skills to find the evidence and link it to the suspect. Excellent communication skills to explain findings to an audience. Now, you should be aware that when you're doing this, you may have to write these to specific audiences, meaning you can write a very technical one, but you may also have to write one because most judges are not aware of a lot of the nitty-gritties with digital forensics. So you have to write it in a manner that they will understand. Because if they don't understand it, it's not going to go very well for your client. Remain updated about new methodologies in forensic technology, well-versed in more than one computer platform like Windows, Mac, and Linux, knowledge of various technologies, hardware and software, develop and maintain contact with computing, networking, and investigating professionals, and also have knowledge of laws relevant to your cases. Okay. Legal compliance and computer forensics. So when you're talking about these, this is actually a really good slide right here because it has a bunch of the laws listed out. Legal compliance and computer forensics ensures that any evidence it is collected and analyzed is admissible in a court of law. Compliance with certain regulations and standards plays an important part in computer forensics investigation and analysis, some of which are the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, that's FISMA, which is the Federal Information Security Modernization Act, HIPAA, which we've talked about before, that's your health records, PCI DSS, which is your payment card industry data security standard. That's anything having to do with when they run debit cards or credit cards. Electronic Communications Privacy Act. That can be used on pretty much anything because it literally has to do with any sort of electronic communications. General Data Protection Regulation, that is your international law. That's not one that's specific to us. But if you do any sort of data moving between, different countries, you're going to need that. Then there's Data Protection Act, and there's the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Gramm-Leach-Bliley and Sarbanes-Oxley, we haven't really talked about. I remember. Yeah, Gramm-Leach-Bliley is financial institutions, and I want to say Sarbanes-Oxley is too, but. Yeah, publicly traded companies. So those are both that have to do with financial institutions. Sarbanes-Oxley Act is publicly traded financial institution type stuff. And as you can see, there are significantly more of those. The nice thing about these, and these are ones that I would, when I get those out there, you can keep the slides because they give you a nice list out of if you're doing anything with anyone else. They have some nice websites, and they have the countries that they are attached to. I will say one thing. Australia has some really cool stuff, but also notice how there's just one when it comes to Hong Kong. You also have Singapore, but a lot of the stuff that when you have to deal with China and things like that, yeah, when you have to deal with those, it's really interesting, and you have to go out and look at those. Did you have a question?
Their laws aren't all that in depth, other than one set. That can't be right.
Yeah, they're not really laws so
society.
much as you will do what I say, and that's pretty much that.
Two-party line or two-party line queue.
Yep, pretty much. All right, so this is our module summary. So on this module, we discussed the fundamentals of computer forensics. We covered the various types of digital evidence and rules of evidence. We also discussed in detail the laws and rules to be considered during digital evidence collection. We discussed forensic readiness planning and business continuity. We also discussed roles and responsibilities of a forensic investigator. And then we ended with our talk on legal compliance and computer forensics. And then we have more on the next one. We're doing a forensic investigation process on the next one. Okay, so do we have any questions before I talk to you guys about labs? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording right here.